It's been a few months, but welcome back to Color Code, a series where we explore different illustrative coloring styles and see what makes them tick. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you so much for watching the first episode of Color Code. I hope you guys stick around for more, and maybe you'll even get to see an increase in quality as we continue. One can only hope. So the artist we'll be looking at today goes by the name of OZE, a French illustrator and character designer who is currently working on a project Mosaic of Bones. To summarize their art style in my eyes, they make highly saturated and vibrant pieces that masterfully push shape and design to the forefront. Adorned with the brightest red circles, OZE's character artworks are serene in posing and structure, but striking in color composition. Although the subjects may be sitting comfortably or smiling softly at the camera, they are surrounded by colors that seem to whip and flash around them. Their choice of vibrant blues and reds to create such stark contrasts adds energy to their pieces, framing the subjects in ways that make their still poses pop to life. Something I noticed in a lot of their pieces, there's a degree of implied motion in their color patterns and posing, almost as if it's framed like stills of an animation. A recent example of this would be their piece, Na and the Sunfish. Even though the subject, Na, is not in a strictly dynamic pose, their framing neatly and evenly against the contrasting negative space actually makes them seem more solid, sturdy, and unmoving. The stylization and large shape shine in the back, juxtaposed with the variation in size and length of light rays in front, makes it seem like the light should be shimmering and moving. You can imagine the smaller rays moving faster than the large chunk in the back. One could say it's like an arpeggiated pattern with a long low note. Speaking of motion, here are some animated shots this piece reminds me of. And also maybe what Na and the Sunfish might be like if it was animated. In terms of their technique, their style has grown over the years, leaning more into louder, more confident color choices. Their older work, though portraying the same softness and solid shapes, is more gray in tone. When reminiscing on this artistic shift, they stated that they have been so much happier now that they've stopped doing the sketch to line art to flat colors to light and shadows technique, which is what I do, so maybe they discovered a secret of some sort? Well, here's the portion of the video where I try to incorporate something of theirs into something of mine, and let me tell you folks, this was a journey. I began with a sketch. This was supposed to be a character of mine, a non-magical berserker elf soldier named Genesis, being creepy while fighting another character. I wanted the character in front, the girl, to be designed sort of akin to OZE's own OCs, with stark reds and a more flowing emphasis on shape. I chose to use a dark gray for the background since it would be easier to experiment with any color for the subject while keeping the contrast intact. I began to color a bit of the skin using a textured brush like this, due to noticing a lot of textures in OZE's own lines. I began to try out some more vibrant colors, and things were looking fine until... So, thick texture brushes are not the best to line with, at least for me, and frustrated, I started again. I chose to use a dark gray for the background since it would be easy, blah blah blah, and shifted focus to the girl in front, taking a deep breath and going forward headfirst into color experimentation. I tried to look at OZE's own use of a lot of red in their characters, so I chose an equally vibrant hot pink and stretched it across the page. I liked how it framed the other characters' intense eyes, which I wanted to be the focus of the piece. Well, at least one of the first things you see. Maybe. I don't know. I then used orange to add a bit of three-dimensionality and variance to the hair. And I had intended to just go ahead painting the shapes and then line it afterwards and clean up. But as I continued, I began to lose the original plan that I had sketched out, and I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing or where I was going with it. I felt restricted in using the chunky textured brush. It was just pain. So I started again. I was very close to not releasing this episode of Color Code. I loved this artist, but for some reason, emulating it was making me miserable. I wanted to make something that looked like OZE's art using the tools, or something close to what I thought they were using, and it was leading me to be restrictive in a way that made doing the art not fun anymore. So I scrolled through their Twitter, looking for some sort of texture, concept, or rule to follow that might help me, and I came across something that someone had mentioned to her in response to one of her more recent pieces. They said, "I need to figure out how to do colors as beautifully as this." And OZE had responded saying, "My advice would be to keep on trying new things until you find something that works with you." Basically, I was being an idiot. Reinvigorated, a day later, I started again and did what I like to do best. I lined my art. Wow, with a soft brush. I had my shapes, so now I could take to colors. Once again with the dark gray background blah 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 contrast. I added colors under the lines, but every so often I went up a layer on top of everything and redefined shapes via the colors I had already laid down. I was free to experiment and change the colors underneath the lines that wouldn't change because I'm not painting over them originally. And I was free to rework whenever I thought something wasn't working. I incorporated some bright reds to highlight some areas in Jen's yellowish hair, brought the vibrant pinks of the girl's hair back and splayed them across the canvas, and made sure to every so often use blues to complement the solid shapes. I tried to incorporate the solid shades that OZE tends to use in one of their red-haired characters, though I wasn't able to get it exact, so I decided to move on and leave the area more open, thinking that it was better to have it more as a solid shape instead of leaving it overly detailed and complex. I discovered the fact that a different textured pen that I did have could be used for additional lining on top, and just went ahead incorporating some extra defining. OZE seems to like adding more lining to the outer edge of areas, not using too many lines within, leaving that to the shades. Finally, some extra lining details were added for empty trim on the fabric and gold pieces, and then a circle shine that emanated from the clashing of the swords. Small extra details and fixes, and voila! A mixed amalgamation of OZE and my own styles. Even though this was a headache to work through, it ended up looking really exciting and fun. Honestly, one of my favorites so far. I ended up talking way too much this time around, but I hope you enjoyed this episode of Color Code. If you have any suggestions, thoughts, or comments, I'd be happy to hear from you. Till next time, see you later.